studying your last two. I swim with tea when they turned in. The staring down to mute and can lend a pole that some kid died.
When discussing salary and dividend planning, many owner-managers focus on tax rates, cash withdrawals, and compensation strategies. However, there is another important question that can significantly affect the overall tax result for a family. Do you have childcare expenses? At first, childcare costs may seem unrelated to compensation planning, but for many families with young children, they can have a major impact on the effectiveness of a salary or dividend strategy. At the center of this slide, we see a family with young children and the costs associated with daycare and childcare services. These expenses can add up quickly and often represent one of the largest ongoing costs for families during their working years. On the left side of the slide, we see what many people naturally focus on. They compare salary and dividends, review tax rates, and look for ways to reduce taxes. While those considerations are important, they represent only part of the planning picture. On the right side, we see how experienced advisors approach the situation. They look beyond the tax calculation itself and consider the family's overall circumstances. This includes childcare costs, daycare receipts, family cash flow, and the availability of potential tax deductions related to those expenses. A compensation strategy that appears optimal from a tax perspective may not be optimal once childcare considerations are included. The process shown at the bottom of the slide highlights the proper planning sequence. First, understand the family's situation. Next, determine whether childcare costs exist. Then evaluate how different types of income may affect available deductions and tax benefits. Finally, design the compensation strategy that produces the best overall result. The key lesson is simple. Before choosing between salary, dividend, or a hybrid approach, advisors should always ask whether childcare expenses are part of the family's financial picture. Good compensation planning is not just about reducing taxes in one area. It is about understanding how all parts of the family's tax situation interact with one another. The most successful planning strategies look at the entire family, not just the corporation. And sometimes a single question about childcare expenses can uncover planning opportunities that would otherwise be missed. Now we come to the most important technical point in this childcare discussion. For childcare purposes, salary and dividends are not treated the same. At first glance, both forms of compensation may put the same amount of cash into the owner's hands. The family can use either salary or dividends to pay bills, cover daycare costs, and support their lifestyle. However, the tax rules do not view these two forms of income identically. On the left side of the slide, we see the salary path. When compensation is paid as salary, it creates earned income. This is an important distinction because earned income is recognized for several tax purposes, including rules related to childcare expense deductions. As a result, salary can help support childcare deduction claims and may provide greater flexibility when planning around family tax benefits. In many situations, salary creates opportunities that simply do not exist when compensation is received entirely as dividends. Now look at the right side of the slide. When compensation is paid as dividends, the cash is still received by the shareholder. However, dividends are generally not considered earned income for childcare deduction purposes. This difference can create limitations. A strategy that relies heavily on dividends may reduce flexibility when claiming childcare expenses and may lead to a less favorable overall family tax result. Notice the statement in the center of the slide. Same cash receipt, different tax consequences. This is exactly why experienced advisors look beyond the amount of cash received and focus on the type of income being received. Two compensation strategies may deliver identical cash flow, yet produce very different tax outcomes once childcare deductions are considered. The key lesson is simple. When a family has significant childcare expenses, the compensation decision should never be based solely on tax rates or immediate tax savings. Instead, advisors should evaluate how the compensation structure interacts with the child care deduction rules and the family's overall tax situation. For child care purposes, salary and dividends are not interchangeable. Understanding that distinction can help preserve valuable deductions and improve the family's overall after-tax outcome. Good compensation planning is not about choosing the income type with the lowest tax rate. It is about choosing the income type that creates the best overall result for the family. This final slide brings together the most important planning lesson from the childcare discussion. Good tax planning is not about maximizing a single tax benefit. It is about maximizing the family's overall after-tax outcome. On the left side of the slide, we see what happens when planning focuses only on one objective: reducing taxes today. The owner chooses a dividend-focused strategy because it appears to create immediate tax savings. At first glance, the result looks positive. Taxes may be lower, and the compensation structure may seem more efficient. However, if that strategy reduces or limits valuable childcare deductions, some of those tax savings may disappear elsewhere. In other words, money saved in one area may be lost in another. That is why the warning message on the left is so important. A strategy that looks good today may cost more tomorrow if all of the family tax consequences are not considered. Now look at the right side of the slide. This is a family-focused planning approach. Instead of looking only at tax rates, the advisor reviews the entire family situation. Compensation planning is coordinated with childcare expenses, family deductions, and overall tax benefits. In this example, a salary component is included in the compensation mix. That salary helps preserve childcare deduction opportunities and may create a better overall result for the family. The goal is not simply to generate tax savings. The goal is to achieve the best combined outcome after considering all available deductions, credits, and family circumstances. Notice the balance scale in the center of the slide. One side represents tax savings. The other represents childcare benefits. The best planning solution is often found by balancing both sides rather than maximizing only one of them. This is why experienced advisors ask a series of important questions before recommending a compensation strategy. Do you have young children? Do you pay daycare expenses? Who is the lower income spouse? Are childcare deductions currently being claimed? How much are annual childcare costs? The answers to these questions can dramatically change the optimal salary and dividend mix. The key takeaway is simple. Tax planning should never be performed in isolation. The objective is not to maximize one tax rule or one deduction. The objective is to maximize the family's overall after-tax outcome. When compensation planning is integrated with childcare planning, families often achieve stronger results and avoid costly mistakes that may not be obvious at first glance.